Now I'm very excited to welcome back a fantastic sports bettor and podcast host, Mr. Ryan Kramer from the Sports Gambling Podcast Network and VSiN. You can follow Ryan on X at Kramer Centric. Ryan, we are back in the draft. Happy draft week to you. How is it going?
Happy draft week. First of all, love that the NFL manages to crush even the NBA playoffs. Baseball going strong. Doesn't matter. Let's talk about guys. Let's have our TMZ soap opera time of the year. We talk about rumors, smoke screens, and things that aren't real. Very excited for this time of year.
Soap opera is right. Diane Rossini almost stole the draft with all that fun shit. But here we are, my man. You know, it's funny. It's like this draft in itself. I look at it and as a whole, I remember a lot more excitement before this last week and a half, I mean, so is it because of the strength? What do you think about the overall strength and hype in this draft this year, Ryan?
I wouldn't consider myself an expert on prospects enough to be able to say this is like the worst class ever. But a lot of people seem to think it's weak, and specifically it's weak in the premium positions, right? Quarterback, don't have a ton. Unlike last year, maybe don't have as many pieces along the defensive line. Cornerback is kind of like meh. Offensive line is a bit of a, maybe these guys all go in the 20s if this is a normal year. And so, yeah, I would say it's definitely a down year. We also have this kind of epic quarterback class staring us in the face in 2027. And so you have, next year is always better. The grass is always greener. But I mean, last year's class was also kind of talked down to, and there were some guys that popped out of that class pretty quickly to show like they're players in the league. So, I like it. I love that the draft community has exploded. I feel like a lot of people have done the whole like, well, fantasy football is not happening now, so I'm going to be a draft expert too. And so I love all the content, but it does seem to have more influence on like the general gist and opinion of the public. And so, yeah, I think that's also driving a little bit of this like worst class ever because there's just more people screaming it. So yeah, I think it's a weak class. I think there's still, if I was looking at some of the prospects though, like a lot of high ceilings still, maybe not as many of those high ceilings, but there's still, probably 10 to 12 guys who are going to show up in this first round and be like very good players. So I don't think it's too different than many other years. It's just lacking those like, marquee players.
Oh, absolutely. I think that we're going to be shocked and all of a sudden some big names are going to kick us right in the face, kind of like an Isaiah Pacheco did, right? For the Chiefs, maybe like an Alvin Kamara, if I'm thinking running backs, there's going to be, it's fine. We're going to rip on this draft and it's going to end up being like the best one in the last 10 years or something crazy like that. And that's kind of the fun thing about it is like trying to predict this. And I think, you have to go way deeper in the draft. It's weird because you look at the top receivers and most of them are running subpar 4.5 and worse 40s. I don't really normally see that.
Just in general, I think wide receiver is very similar to offensive tackle. I think where you have you're lacking guys that kind of check the all the way. Jamar Chase, Julio Jones, even Malik Neighbors more recently, like guys that are obvious. Now, I think most people would say, hey, like Jordan Tyson doesn't have this injury stuff. Maybe we're talking about him a little differently as one of those guys, but everyone else, I agree. But unfortunately, though, receiver, much like tackle, is one of those positions where because of the value equation and teams are so sharp to understand, well, who are what are the highest paid positions? Quarterback, offensive line, receiver, edge, cornerback. So these positions are going to be better values in the top 10. And so I think that ends up driving the receivers up. And so I actually think, like even Carnell Tate, right? The 40 time, we even got like the apologetic insider saying, no, other guys had faster times. He's not that slow. I still think Carnell Tate's going to be a top 10 guy because at the end of the day, if you're drafting in the top 10, you probably don't fancy the idea that you're going to draft in the top 10 in the future. And that's generally where you have to pick an elite-ish receiver. And so I think regardless of if you believe they're fringe or not, they're still going to go regardless of 40 time.
Yeah, I agree. I actually, in my mock, I have 2 receivers in the top 10 myself. So no disagreement on that one. It's funny. One quarterback is really that sticks out to me. Ty Simpson, and we'll get to that, but he's getting a lot of hype, and I kind of scratch my head a little bit on that one myself. But you forecast a lot of trades coming this year. It's funny because everyone's kind of keeping wraps on things. I will say, for sucking at everything else, the Jets are doing a pretty good job of not telling us what they're going to do.
Well, I will say, it's like, if these teams were smart, they would just have someone who was in charge of getting bad information out there. Because you don't need a lot of bad information, but just the existence of a little bad information will create uncertainty. As far as Ty Simpson, yeah, it does seem like, are the Jets interested? Or are the Jets not interested in Ty Simpson? Are they all in for this 2027 class? I think more teams are interested in Ty Simpson than we think. I'm not going to say it reminds me of Jackson Dart last year, because Jackson Dart had a ton of starts under his belt. It was different kind of question marks about what kind of player he was. But man, I think more teams are interested in Ty Simpson than we think, and it only takes one, as they say. And so I'm as someone who likes to bet on the draft, I have some investment on Ty Simpson to go in the first round, and so I could see someone not named the Cardinals or Jets drafting him.
And that's possible. I don't think the Cardinals will, but it's like, you look at a guy that played for Alabama. He's 6'1" listed. His 40 time's not great. He limps into the playoffs when many say that they shouldn't have. He has 1 year under his belt, and all of a sudden he's a first round guy. It's kind of like, where's he blowing people away at? I'm really scratching my head on him, because I actually like Carson Beck better than him for number 2. And I don't like anybody really in the first round except for Mendoza. I'm just saying that, but it's not about what we like either. It's about what you think teams are going to do, and GMs. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on Ty Simpson and who he goes to then?
I mean, I certainly think, one, I can't unsee the comp of Daniel Jones. I forget who made it originally, where I heard it, of like being a smaller Daniel Jones. He has that same kind of running style where he doesn't necessarily appear to be, in control of all his limbs, or however you want to put it. Like, not a compliment, not the best athlete, but strong arm. That's why people like that. He looked good at times in the Kalen DeBoer system, who has made other quarterbacks look good, like Michael Penix. And I think he checks enough of the boxes to where, I think the inexperience is part of the benefit. People like the unmolded clay aspect of him. So maybe it's Pittsburgh, and this is like the McCarthy pick as he joins the Steelers. Still a lot of Aaron Rodgers uncertainty. We've heard the rumors about the Rams potentially taking a quarterback of the future, although I don't quite understand that. And then I think there's the unknown, the team that just says, you know what, we think this is a guy, we have time to develop him, and we're going to do a Jordan Love type thing and take him at the back end of the first round. Maybe we trade in for cheaper. I certainly have some exposure, funny enough, for the Packers to take him in some sort of weird scenario. In that case, he's probably slipping, but I think enough teams are kind of intrigued by him, and we're just hearing the same type of smoke that we heard about Jackson Dart last year. That's where the comparison lies for me, where it's like people start going, no, this guy's going to go in the first round. Like, we're not sure where, but someone's coming to get him at the end of the first round.
All right. Well, there you go. That over first rounds actually was more juice now. It was kind of close to even. Maybe you have a better number than what it was. So there's others like you that think that they will, someone could trade back in, or he can be a late pick in the draft.
And so a fun way to play that, because it is, I think, minus decent odds for him to be a first rounder. Now his over under is still 24.5 with wonky juice, but him heads up versus Max Iannaccio, the tackle out of Arizona State, the project, who some think the Eagles could take him at 23. Other than that, probably someone that's going to go late first round, early second. So if you do think that Ty Simpson, could potentially get in somewhere in the 20s again, like Jackson Dart last year, 25, that you can get that at 2-1. And so that's, a different angle, a much better price. Obviously it's a little riskier in my opinion, because you're potentially going against the 23rd pick, but I like the price. And again, I'm kind of trying to buy up little pieces of Ty Simpson getting drafted in the first round where I can find a good price.
Well, way to pronounce that last name. Ian Acher, I was trying to say Acker. It's really tough, but he did block well for Jordan Tyson, and I think for Cam Scadaboo as well. So we'll see where he lands. It's funny. I mean, let's just quick jump to this. The position total is 7.5 for O-line. I thought I was going to get to 8, but I mean, on my mock, I stuck at 7 because I have Seattle suckering out at 32 and grabbing Jadarian Price at running back. I think it's very possible. I remember a draft that blew up that bet for me when Edwards-Helaire was drafted to the Chiefs. I was like, seriously, Chiefs, and so I'm scared as hell to bet under 1.5 running backs because of it.
So we're going to be live during the draft on the Sports Gambling Podcast, YouTube, everywhere you can find us, and we're going to be having some exclusive markets that can be played. And one of them is we're going to be offering 8.5 offensive linemen. Here's why. I have 9 going in the first round in my mock draft. Francis Maui-Noah, Spencer Fanu, Vega Ioane, Monroe Freeling, Caden Proctor, Blake Miller, Caleb Lomu, Max Ionacher, Chase Basantis, and the hot take is Emmanuel Pregnon. And so going to the Bills, maybe the Texans, although I think that's Basantis. Either way, I have 9 guys. And so if you think it's going to be only 7 and you really want to have a confident play, I would tune into us because we're going to be offering that 8.5. And I'm definitely going to be buying up all the overs.
Well, look at that. Like a little gambling on the Sports Gambling Podcast. That's fun during the draft. You got to tune in to check that out because that's a better number than you're getting right now. Right now, 7.5 is juiced to the over on the books. I'm not confident at all at my 7. Not gonna lie. I could definitely see 8. I could see 7. I doubt 6. I could see 9. It would not shock me. What's funny on these position totals, Ryan, I'm very close to what they are. I think I have like 5 wide receivers. I do only have 1 running back or quarterback. So I could be wrong on that if you hit your bet. But it's funny. I didn't find a hell of a lot of value in the positional totals itself. And usually I'm hitting them pretty hard because the cornerback class I'm scratching my head a little bit about the cornerback class. The safety, I've never seen safety as high as 2.5, man. It's crazy to me to see that number. And I have 2 or 3 myself going into first, which could be wrong.
I mean, also, I feel like from a market perspective, they get sorted out, and they don't generally move the number; they just move the juice, and so they become kind of not super attractive. And then it just becomes the riddle of can I play? Like, have they affected the derivative markets appropriately, and can we find something there? I'm generally with you. I mean, the offensive line one stood out to me just because it seemed offensive line is one of those positions where I just think even guard, once you get to a point in the first round, that position matters more than most on a football team. And so when you're in the 20s, to me, there's a good reason we see lots of wide receivers and offensive linemen go in the late, like the last 12 picks of the first round, because you're getting that extra control. You're picking into a premium position, and for that reason, yeah, I think the like I would look at it from a group perspective. Like I would never take an under on offensive linemen. I would never take an under on receivers for that reason because guys always elevate. And obviously, to your point on the safeties, like that is an interesting number. Now it seemed based on the juice, it seems like a lock that there's going to be 3 in the first round, which that again seems crazy, but we've had, it's that time. How much do you know, right? Right. As much as the mock draft community, creates inertia for. And so are the Vikings really going to take Thieneman? Everyone seems to think so, but
Yeah. And that's really where that bet starts because we're almost sure Caleb Downs is going to be, in the top 10, top 12. I would say top 12 for sure. For him, I have him going to the Giants at 10th, but yeah, it's that bet's going to start right there. And if everyone wants the dude from Toledo, they're going to probably get him at the end. But it's funny, in my mock draft, I have who you should pick section, I have like 10 offensive linemen. So I agree. I mean, offensive linemen's like an easy not get fired if you're a GM type situation. So I love that. But speaking of love, let's talk about picks 2 and 3 here. I mean, dude, the juice has been back and forth on 2. And what's funny is my thoughts. I mean, what I've heard around the grapevine is that it was kind of the same thing that Daniel Jeremiah and Schrager said. It's Bailey, and I quick hit it at plus 240 that he's going to be the second pick. And I bet a decent, And don't get me wrong, I have a shit bet from like 2 months ago that's going to be banged, and might as well throw that one in the garbage, obviously. But this was way before the draft even kind of was talked about. This is during college basketball season, so I do have to make up for my 1 unit on Bane. But I mean, I honestly think that, do we even know what these GMs even think? Because the funny thing is that what if the Jets got a haul for the pick number 2? I mean, their mind will be trading back. And same with the Cardinals. It's kind of like even GMs, I feel, aren't completely sure. So this was a situation where we both had opportunities to take plus money on both of these guys, and maybe shame on us if we did it.
There's always that immense regret when you don't play both sides of a market, and especially I'll pull back the curtain on my process a little bit. I like to leave myself reminders in the future on my calendar to effectively just from a little tidbit of like, hey, don't get tripped up by this again, make sure to look. And one of them this year was like, hey, just don't listen to anything the last week of the before the draft. And if things move, buy the other side, because it's probably going to be garbage. And yeah, I mean, certainly I would love to have Reese and Bailey. And now I will say, latest news, I can't get the video of Bailey talking to a reporter about who he thinks is the Jets, but really he's talking about the Arizona GM. And it's in a positive sense. And so it's like, okay, now I'm tying Bailey back to Arizona, because in the end,
he said the name, I think, right?
Yeah. Right. He said, Ossie or whatever his name is. And I think on the other side, you have the GM of the Jets being like, don't look into the fact that we canceled his 30 visit. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. And so those two things I will be having Reese. And now the other thing is this, is Arizona really looking at Love? Is there actually pressure from ownership? I mean, look, if you had a GM that was doing the process the right way and drafting nothing but premium positions, but you weren't winning games, and you saw a guy that you kind of have some eyes for, like, that's the exact recipe for ownership getting involved and maybe helping press the button. What worries me about the Jeremiah Love stuff is Peter Schrager, who generally is plugged in at that level, has Jeremiah Love, I believe, going to the Cardinals in his latest draft. And so that is interesting.
Well, I've said this in last week's show too. Being in Arizona, I have someone close in the organization that's been there over 27 years. And I try to get tidbits from him, but what's funny about this is I do get info, but the truth is that he can't even be sure, because they might trade back. What they want to do, according to him, is trade back, but they do love Love. They think that, Austin Fort, it could save him a little bit. They think that he is a generational player. And I disagree personally. I wouldn't draft Love there. I mean, myself, I would have Bailey or Reese at 2 and 3. I just don't like running backs in general that early. But the fact that I heard it from him, it's like maybe he hates me. He has to see me every day. So if he gives me some shitty information, he knows I bet. I'd be a little bit upset at him. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they're trying to get the word out there because of it. But I mean, the way he looks at it is they kind of want to trade down with maybe even the Titans, and maybe the Titans throw him like the 5th round pick or 4th just to move up one spot to get their guy in Love. But that's kind of what makes me think that they could be using Love as a little bit of a bait. So I grabbed that at 10-1 about 2 weeks ago. That Love's number 3
nice.
now. And I have some value on that. And here's how I'm hedging. I'm hedging the Bailey a little bit. I took Bailey 3rd at plus 300. and I have some other smaller bets kind of tied to that. But if it was me drafting, I would take Bailey if he's available over Love, but I can't stop somebody that falls in love with a running back, and we've seen that with Bijan Robinson and actually Gibbs kind of turned out for the Lions, and and sometimes it turns out, and that's my thoughts, and kind of that's what I heard. But it would not shock me if somebody trades with Arizona to get somebody else.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing. Is it seems like there's a lot of teams that want to trade back, and I feel like most years we get a lot of trade back talk. Oh, there's going to be a lot of trade backs. This, like there's going to be a lot of activity, and again, back to your first question about strength. Even though perceived as a weaker class, once you're there and you evaluate it within the container that it is, well, actually, it might be important to get inside the top 12 or 14 or whatever that number is that you feel is the elite actual first round guys. And so now you're back to a formula where, these picks are only being measured against this year now. And so maybe it is valuable to trade up. We were just talking about I haven't seen a number out there. Typically there's trade, we'll get how many trades in the top 10, how many trades in the first round. I don't know if you've seen a number out there. I've not anywhere, even offshore, locals, nothing. And so I was kind of speculating on what I would make it. And I think I'm going to say 1.5 trades in the top 10 and 4.5 in the first round. And I think the Cardinals to me are that's one of those Cardinals and the Giants are the two teams where it's I think they both have been very clear they would like to trade back. Can they find a partner?
Absolutely. And the truth is, I don't think they will find much for that based upon this draft. I think the only team that everybody's talking about is the Cowboys, and I don't even think the Cowboys want to give up so much capital, and they could trade to 6 for Sonny Styles, and that's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe the Browns do trade back again, like they kind of shocked us with last year with the trade for the Colorado kid. Travis Hunter, can I see him already forgetting stuff? It's not season right now. Yeah, I think I saw that, and I'm just going to kind of look while you talk here too. But I thought I saw in an offshore book the trade number. So
nice. Yeah, no, I have not. That's all. Yeah, I would love to know what they actually are, because it every year we get the same kind of hype around trades. But I do, again, because once you're in the draft, it's just, unless you're dealing with future assets, which I don't think many teams will deal with future assets this year, because everyone thinks next year's class is going to be awesome. They've also said this year's class is deep relative to how it is weak at the top, but deep overall, which means, the idea of trading, maneuvering to get your guy still makes sense. And so back end of the first round, always a time when trades can happen. And then, again, what are those elite positions you're willing to come up for? Is it a sliding defensive end like Bain or Bailey? Is it a receiver? Perhaps, because we've heard that, there's been smoke that Carnell Tate and Jordan Tyson could both be gone by 5. Now, I don't necessarily buy it with the Titans or a team trading up to 4 to get Tate, but those would be the positions that I think suffice these trades when they happen. I don't think it's going to be anything else.
All right. I agree. I found it, and it is,
what is it?
On an offshore 4.5, but it's -120 on both sides. Of course they're going to charge you that, but under 4.5 -120 is how many trades will occur in round 1 in the draft. I think that could be a solid number. Now that I think about it, I have to dive a little deeper into that, but I feel like there's a lot more variance of the unknown in this draft. Some other weird ones are how many trades in the top 10, or will there be a trade in the top 10 picks? Yes, -250. No, +170 on the comeback here. Which will a current NFL player be traded during round 1? Yes, +170 if you remember the AJ Brown trade, and no, -250. So most say no, but there could be a player actually traded. Too bad the Giants didn't wait on that one, right?
So Interesting. So I was pretty close there. So basically 1.5 on the top 10 as well. Yeah, I would go. My instincts would say that I'm going to buy the smoke on the trades this year because I do think there are a smaller list of guys that are coveted that some teams who possess a lot of middle round picks will realize that maybe they can trade up at a discount this year because it is like Arizona, I think would take a discount to your point from a team like Tennessee or a short trade back. So to your point, I would probably go over on all of these. And yeah, I think now with the AJ Brown trade will not count. Obviously, that's going to be a post June 1st. But yeah, I mean, Kayvon Thibodeau, as a Giants fan, he's certainly on the table as someone that could be traded. I would say probably no on the player traded. I think.
Right, and it was when Tennessee traded AJ Brown during the draft last year, or a couple years ago to Philly. So that's what I was thinking. And obviously, he's the big trade news again this year. 1.5 plus 150 to the over. So that's the top 10 picks here. So the offshore also has that. So you're right on the number, just 1 plus 150, close on the juice. I would, over. I think, yeah. If the Cardinals trade with the Titans, you can definitely see the Cowboys coming up, and you'd hit that. So I'm gonna circle that one, Ryan, and maybe revisit that one after the show. So, what about positional totals? Like I said, I can bring them up here, our friends at FanDuel, and find out kind of what the proper numbers are here. So you say over. We'll start offensive line. You say over 7.5, correct?
Yeah, and I mean I'm guessing the juice is pretty heavy to the over on the 7.5.
Yeah, it is. Oh God, it's -1. It's up to -300 now. It was 240 last time I looked.
So yeah, at -300, and again, we'll be dealing 8.5 live on our show during the draft. But yeah, I mean, I love the over. I think the offensive linemen are those guards that everyone's like, oh yeah, they're early second round guards. No, those types of players just go in the first round in a year where there's no running backs or quarterbacks to come up and get. There's nothing but offensive linemen to come up and get. Maybe talk me into a receiver, maybe a Ty Simpson, but to your, I think it's fair to argue against those points. The offensive linemen, that's when they're going to go, and there's going to be a number of them going. It only might be a handful, like 4 or 5. It might be 4 in the first 20 picks, and then there might be an absolute slide. So yeah, I love the over on the off. And in general, like you said, I'm very rarely are you going to find the offensive line market juice the other way. They're going to position this to where the over is going to be the side that looks less appealing to the average Joe, who's going to be like, oh, I'll take a piece of the plus money here.
Absolutely. And gun to the head, I'd take the over as well. I'm not betting -300 on that, but I would. I mean, we could
right? Exactly.
Yeah. So it's. I'm with you on that. All right, let's go to cornerbacks. This is -700 to the under 4.5. That's a massive number, but Jesus, I mean, I think I have 3 or 4 in the first round, and now you have one with that ACL and a possible. They're talking about the knee with the Tennessee kid. That was mocked to go early, or LSU. I think it was LSU.
Jermod, you were right. Jermod McCoy out of Tennessee. Yeah. He's kind of the guy who, if not for the injury, and not only he got hurt a while ago, so he's kind of all the way back. The issue is that maybe the knee is going to continue to devolve to a point of needing more surgeries. I mean, I think sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, such an important position with that injury too.
And this is one where it's, I think that this is the kind of year where, this is, I mean, I'm not sure how many you have going in the first round of your mock draft, but I think I'm at 3, maybe 4. So yeah, I think the juice is telling you everything here.
Yeah, I think corners, I have 3, and I included him in my draft, so that's how bad this is. I mean, I wouldn't include him in the first round if I redid it today, like you say you like to do late, which is very smart. I just, I wouldn't do that. What about So quarterbacks is now minus 250 to over 1.5. So that's moving in your direction as well. Plus 180 on the under. I'm not going to lie. Plus 180 looks better to me on the under in this one. I didn't know it would get that high. When I bet it like a week or so ago, I think I had minus 110. So this is one that moved away from me, Ryan.
Yeah, and again, this is if I'm just reading tea leaves, like my opinion out of this. Again, this market it's mimicking the dart market that like where information started coming out, where at least one team. This movement is suggesting to me there's two teams, which two teams tells me it's only going to keep getting steeper, and so I would if this is one where if you like this dog price, it's almost like you want to buy a little bit and just kind of see where it goes. Because I think like this could very quickly slide out of control as we're hours away. Right. So yeah, I certainly follow most of the steam this time of year, especially with the quarterback stuff.
Okay, running back over 1.5 at plus 400, under minus 700. So you can definitely tell there's juice in there, right? But still, I mean, if you think that Price is going to Seattle, I would want to see, first selected positions by teams and see if running back is better than plus 400 with Seattle, because that's the only other place I could think.
It does seem like, barring a surprise, because I don't know where you're at with the prospects themselves, but I'm not even so sure that Price, Washington, and Coleman, and maybe even Emmett Johnson to me aren't all that far apart. Mm-hmm. And I understand why Price has the top spot, but we've seen this before with running backs. And again, I would follow the juice here and take the under, because to your point, it's just when you're doing the mock, and I encourage people, even if you don't put out a mock, go through the process for betting purposes, because it becomes very easy to realize where it becomes hard to do. And I think Seattle, everyone I've spoken to in the Seattle area is like, they're not making a pick. I'm trying to book people for our draft stream. We have fans from every team, and the couple guys for Seattle are like, yeah, I'm probably not going to wait up that late because we're not making the pick. We're going to trade out. And so to your point, if they trade out, then no one's taking a running back. And then if Price kind of expanding beyond the total here, if Price doesn't go there, that means everyone's passed on him. And we've seen this before. Once everyone passes on you once, it might be twice. And that means that we might have our second running back not until the late second round or early third round. Which means now we have variance in a market, because their second running back is being offered out there. And Mike Washington, I believe, is 8-1. Jonah Coleman is like 25-1. And so, I love the variance markets. I mean, a shout out to Will Levis from a couple of years ago. But I love playing some variance. And I think when you get into the draft, if you think about like each pick as a coin flip, think about the probability once you get into the 30s, 40s. And so, yeah, Mike Washington, second running back, would be a fun one. But if we're talking first round, I think it is just going to be Jeremiah Love, because at the end of the day, I feel like we've had running back classes like this before where we just have a void and they just kind of slide on down to the third round, where it's a little bit, take the defensive tackles, the leftover offensive linemen and receivers in the second round, premium positions, cornerbacks, and let's save this running back stuff to the third round.
Yeah, I remember our Will Levis conversations a couple of years ago, my friend. That's a tough one. But you know what? It's like it was his redemption. He could have came back, and I totally agreed with what you're doing there. It's funny about it's funny. The Seattle's got plus 330 on the first position as a running back, right? Their first position. Yet plus 400, two running backs in the first. Here's the problem: Seattle can trade back 5 spots, and then you still get a running back. And you look at that. So I would be curious to see a prop that says no running back in the second round, because I always remember running backs being drafted in the second round. I think that'd be a pretty cool prop to throw out there.
And honestly, that's the kind of thing I think we would see pop up overnight. We'll have, I'd imagine something like that, like total, let's set the total for the second round, give me an over under half or one, even 1.5, I guess. But yeah, no, I just think I think there's like kind of these bunches of positions and positions that teams find valuable that are going to cause potentially a guy like Price to fall down the board.
100%. Well, let's look at some player over-unders because I made a few bets on this. Now, my love under 4.5 at plus 145, that's long gone. We talked about that last week. But what about Downs? I bet Downs over 9.5 at plus 135 because I just don't see people reaching that early for a safety. Now, technically, the Giants could take him if they're not sold on an offensive lineman or a linebacker in Styles or whoever else they're looking at. I've even heard love to the Giants. So I'm still kind of liking that at plus 135, and that's one I took. I still have the Reese over 2.5 at plus 150 that I'm hedging, and I have Kenyon Sadiq under 15.5 for draft position. So you can comment on those or give me some that you like.
So going backwards there, I mean, the Sadiq one is one that I've really been tripped up on because the more that I think about it, now I do have Sadiq to go to the Vikings at a juicy price, 10-1. It just seems like if he gets there, that's going to be something they have to think about. But the more that I think about it, the more that he's not getting past the Bucks at 15. I like your position. Yeah. The Bucks had 6 tight ends in for top 30 visits. He was one of them. They lost Mike Evans. He's not going to be Mike Evans, but he certainly can offer that verticality in the passing game. He's a physical guy. It sounds like he's a better blocker than he's going to be giving credit for. I'm not saying he's Colston Loveland, but Colston Loveland did just go as the number 10 pick. So this isn't that craziest thing. So yeah, I like that one. Remind me, what were the other, what was the non-Jeremiah Love one?
Okay. So there was Downs over 9.5. And yeah, that's the only one that's usable right now.
So Downs. So normally I would say you're good. It does seem like that. Now the Giants could shock everyone and take them at 5. Safety positional value. I understand the argument for running back. To me, safety is a different argument because it also means you're getting a guy. If you believe he's the best player, defensive player in the draft, you're getting a guy you're going to give a second contract to. Right. And that second contract isn't going to be a huge deal. And sure, he's not going to be the cheapest guy right away, but it's not running back where you don't really generally have, second contracts for running backs are a lot more rare because they wear down, blah, blah, blah. The whole different positional value. To me, the defensive positional value game with off-ball linebacker and safety is different because those guys, in a lot of cases, when they're great, they lead your defense and they make your defense great. Think about every great safety that you remember them as, basically the leader, Troy Polamalu, Ed Reed, Sean Taylor, like these guys all changed their defense in a way that, only a guy like, a pass rusher maybe could do. And so now how valuable is that safety after all? And so, yeah, I think Harbaugh is walking away with Downs. I think it's probably going to be at 10. I now keep reading a little bit of smoke about Washington maybe being interested and Dan Quinn like getting a defensive player. But I think him going 10 to the Giants feels right. So I think your plus 135 is safe.
I'll hope so. It's minus 115 on both sides now. So let's see if that's safe. I'd still like it there. Yeah, I got Washington at a receiver in Tate, actually. And I think I have even Jordan Tyson going to the Saints. So I kind of have back-to-back receivers there in the first round. Any ones that you like for draft position currently?
You're speaking my language. I love this time of year. And so I've been kind of buying throughout. Like I said, a lot of let me pull up my before I give you a position. This is kind of positional, but this is a head to head. Because they don't have totals for Peter Woods or Caden McDonald out yet, but they do have a head to head market for them. Peter Woods is like a 2-way defensive tackle that's going to offer you pass rushing ability. I think he could potentially go as early as the Steelers at 21, the Chargers at 23. He's going against Caden McDonald, someone who I think the Giants believe they can get in the second round with their pick at 37. And so Peter Woods is still plus 120. That to me is certainly, I mean, again, like you're essentially, you're playing these as like, what is the position that they're going to be drafted and which teams like Caden McDonald over Peter Woods. And from what I can tell, the teams in the back half of the first round, I think a little bit more are looking for a Peter Woods over a Caden McDonald. Let's see here.
There's like Tate 7.5. There's Messidor. It's 25.5. A couple of those.
Well, yeah. So Tate, we can start with Tate. Tate at 7.5. I love that you can get I'm guessing plus odds on the under.
Mm-hmm.
More that I think about this, the more that I think it's unlikely, but he could go 4. He certainly could go 5. I think the more that I think about it, the Browns aren't going to take the tackle, that the developmental tackle with this pick. They're going to take it with their second pick. And so I think Tate could go 6, stay in the state, go to the Browns. I think joining up with former Ohio State receiver Terry McLaurin and Washington at 7 is in play. So I think there's too many landing spots. And again, back to our conversation about receivers being premium, too many landing spots and too many reasons why I think he ends up going under that. So I like that you can get a plus price there. I'll give you, here's another one, another dark horse, Chris Johnson, the cornerback out of San Diego State. To me, he is one of the cornerbacks that I think ends up going in the first round. Currently, his number is 32.5. You got, I'm guessing that the juice is getting worse, but I have a -150 on that. I'm not, if it's gotten terribly worse than that, maybe I wouldn't play it. Maybe shop it against the first round price.
250 -250.
Oh yeah, that's okay.
You're on the right side of things, Ryan. So there you go.
It's so hard. It's so hard because I'm not trying to be that guy. All right, but let's talk about Jermod McCoy, whose total is now 28.5.
Mm-hmm. That's -150 to the over.
-150 to the over. I understand that this is a potentially bad knee situation for some teams. It's never all teams. And some people have him as the number 1 cornerback on the board. Maybe it's a team that's drafting twice. And that's probably, this number probably lines up to where the Chiefs are picking pretty nicely because they just traded away a cornerback for a first round pick in the 29 spot that was the Rams. But to me, that is one where if the news is going to continue to push this price, at some point I'm buying the plus odds on Jermod McCoy under. Maybe the number keeps moving and it becomes a first round bet, but I still think a guy with that kind of talent, if not all, 32 teams think his knee is going to require more surgeries, I'll be wrong. But if 31 teams do and one team doesn't, there's a good chance that they would take him at the end of the first round before a team's picking for the second time, and then maybe has a little bit more courage to take a player like that.
Yeah, that's a late pick, and a lot of people have lower grades on the second half of the first round anyway. Say that some of these guys could be round 2 guys minus the offensive line, so that could see them possibly doing that. But you're right, there could be a buy spot for some of these guys, and that's what you have to remember. That what we saw last year was it Johnson from Michigan that got picked out of the first round from Arizona. Arizona Cardinals picked him, and was it Chris Johnson?
Will Johnson.
Will, thank you. Thank you. It is tough to remember these names, but he, I don't know if he did a lot. Not a lot of people watched a lot of Cardinals games. I don't remember him being an impactful player, but he was kind of coming off surgery himself. So that's what makes this whole Jermod McCoy thing fall. And it just takes one team to blow up your draft. So, you got to be very, very careful on that. So let's move to some of those first draft positions from teams. And I got a couple long shots that I want to run by you. And if you bet any of these, they're kind of fun. I went first Giants offensive line at their 5th spot at +1,000, just because I think that Jackson Dart being a rookie, if you remember last year, he was putting himself out to death, running the ball so much. And you just wonder, maybe they're like, okay, let's just protect him. I know their offensive line is supposedly, somewhat in put together, let's say. I just think at 10-1, I took a little shot at that. And another long shot I took is Broncos linebacker at 7-1. I know that a lot of the linebackers are getting scooped up early, but with Matt Milano not being re-signed and Bernard always getting injured, it seems, I almost feel like they might protect there rather than go nose tackle 3 technique.
Yeah, I think the Giants one is very real. I mean, you remember it was fairly shocking when the Chargers took Joe Alt in that draft a couple of years ago with his brother in his first draft as the Chargers coach. And so, yeah, I think if they go that route, it could be Maui Noah there at 5. There's all now. This isn't the first pick, but there's also look. The Giants would like to trade down, depending on where they trade down to or how they feel the trade down opportunities are going to be. Let's say they go down to 10 and 12, and then we get to 10 and they take downs, and then we get to 10 and they decide, you know what, we're going to go with Vega Ioane, and we're just going to take our guard and plug them in there. But 100%, I like that idea because Harbaugh has said that he wants these picks to be tone setters. And to me, a tone setter means you're not like you're physically setting a tone with your words, with your presence, or with your play. And to me, an offensive lineman and Francis Maui Noah, for all the stuff that people talk about this back situation, he never missed a game. He never missed a game, and he's never missed a game in his career, high school or college. So, he's going to plug in at guard nicely. I like that play a lot.
All right, great stuff. And I'm not sure if you did any first draft positions themselves. These are some long shots.
Oh, I'm loaded up here. Let's start with the Texans. We all know they're drafting in the back end of the first half or the first round. I think conventional wisdom, offensive lineman makes sense. It's chalk. I'm not going to argue with that. But D'Amico Ryans was a linebacker. What if he has fallen in love? First of all, what if they trade back because they've fallen in love with Jacob Rodriguez from right down the road at Texas Tech, a linebacker who is very cerebral. Why? Because he came into college as a quarterback. Kid's different. He tested well, which surprised people. Everyone thought he was going to be the guy that was just like a linebacker who played well. He tested well too. So I certainly think whether it's a trade down or a shocking first round pick here, again, back to my comment about off ball linebacker and positional value. These guys are potentially the quarterbacks of the defense. And so if it's the right one, 13-1, Texans take a linebacker first. So that one certainly is a fun dart. Now, I also love attacking these markets for second round teams. I think they're crazy for putting this out there, but for teams that don't have a first round pick, like the Jacksonville Jaguars, for example, what are we going to do here? Well, they don't pick. Again, the reason you're attacking the second round is you're attacking variance. They don't have the pick in the first round, which means there's that many more coin flips before they pick. 56 is their first pick. What if they decide there are some receivers that are going to be available in this range? What if they decide they lost Christian Kirk, Travis Hunter? I guess you can say they lost him. He's now a full-time cornerback. We don't know what's going to happen with Brian Thomas. He could be one of those draft day trades. What if they go receiver here? It's plus 950. Little shocking. The price is so long considering it seems like a clear positional value of need and offensive coaching staff, et cetera, et cetera. Another team that doesn't draft in the first round, the Atlanta Falcons. I believe the chalk here is defensive lineman, something they invested heavily in last year. That's why they don't have a first round pick. James Pierce was the trade up target, which not looking great a year into that situation. Well, they also need cornerbacks, and I expect AJ Terrell's brother, Avion Terrell, to be available and on the board from Clemson when they're picking in the second round. Cornerback is plus 650 for the Falcons. Another one where it makes a lot of sense. That's certainly, offensive coach coming in, blah, blah, blah. But, this defense was getting closer. They need some help on the back end. I love the price and the pairing there.
Wow. There you go, man. That is great stuff to think about. Especially, I love it when you take a long shot and the team trades back or they don't have a first round pick because, what the hell happened to Brian Thomas, man? I have him in a dynasty fantasy league, and he was great the first year, and he had mental problems the second year. He wasn't running his routes; balls were bouncing off. They quit throwing to him in the second half of the season. Man, he wasn't even like the number one guy.
It's like on one hand, it does seem like Liam Cohen's system perhaps was maybe a little rigid for him. And there were the reports that he was dealing with a death of a close friend before the year, and maybe he's a young kid that just didn't take it well. But I'm with you. He went from being like looking to be one of the bright spots coming out of the. I mean, Jaden Daniels throwing to Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, how nice. But I mean, to see what he turned into, and because it wasn't just mental stuff; it was physical stuff too. And there's been a lot of smoke about them potentially trading him. He's a very valuable asset, a young receiver with still 2 years of team, maybe 3 years of team control. And so, yeah, that on the Jacksonville one was, my process for this stuff is there's not a lot of good places that aggregate this or have a good odds screen around draft props. So I like to just do it the old way. I'll scroll through the window. And so positional ones are my favorites. It's just like, let me see what the odds are thinking. And I got to the Jags and I'm like, my goodness, I was assuming the wide receiver was going to be one of the top 3 favorites. It's a clear thing that they want to, they've talked about, they're not done reshaping that room. They brought in Jacoby Myers, big deal, but there's still more to do there. And so, yeah, I was really shocked to find that price.
Oh, that's a fantastic.
I got one more for you. It's kind of up this same alley. It's not a team, but it's Mr. Irrelevant, which of course we know is the last pick. This year, the Denver Broncos have the last 2 picks. Sean Payton has talked about the need to bring a tight end onto this team. Tight end is plus 1,600 to be Mr. Irrelevant. I mean, they took a tight end late in the draft last year. If you go back and look at his draft record, for New Orleans, he loved taking late round tight ends or undrafted guys. They converted Taysom Hill, if you remember that experiment. So yeah, I think a fun little dart throw. Obviously, this pick could get traded. Who knows what's going to happen? But that's why we're taking a long shot. So last pick in the draft, aka Mr. Irrelevant, will be a tight end, 16-1.
I mean, there's a few out there like a Jack Endries from Texas, Michael Trigg from Baylor. That's going to fall right at the end of this thing. So that's
it's one of the deepest tight end classes. People are saying it's not a very good class at the top. Only a couple of guys in the first 3 rounds, but there's going to be a lot of guys, a lot of some blocking guys, a lot of guys going in the late rounds, undrafted free agent type stuff. So. Look out for that. That will be electric, as you have to wait till the end of the draft to see if we win.
I love it. A Mr. Irrelevant. That is kind of so perfect, and I didn't even get that far yet, but here we are. Kramer giving us the Mr. Irrelevant, Mr. Tight End. I love it. We're gonna look at that one for sure. So, you've already gave us a lot of bets. I was gonna ask if you have a best bet, but man, I think all these sound pretty good.
Honestly, my favorite, the favorite bet that I have that it's moved against me, so you can actually get a better price, is Francis Maui Noah to be the first offensive lineman drafted. I'm not worried about this injury stuff, and offensive line guys that I trust, film guys, tell me that Spencer Fanu has short arms just like Will Campbell did last year. I think we have to rule him out. I don't care how good his feet moved. Will Campbell's feet moved well too. And we saw what happened in the playoffs. When it comes down to it and you got to block the best, they're just going to defeat you with their length. And you have, could Vega, you only go guard unlikely. You're kind of just, to me, fighting against a Caden Proctor, a Monroe, like someone taking a project early. But like I told you, I kind of have convinced myself the Browns are analytical guys and they're going to go positional value, not reach on the project tackle when they have the second pick. So yeah, Francis Maui Noah, I was all over this at minus 200. It's now basically minus 110. And so I would encourage you to take that one. To me, he could go 3 to the Cardinals. We kind of had a little bit of discussion about that. He'd go to the Giants, like you said. I think he's also in play to go a doubt to the Browns, but I do think he's in play to the Browns because he wouldn't be a project. And then I certainly think he's also in play to the Chiefs, who I think want to protect Patrick Mahomes. And so I think at least 3 of those teams have him number 1 on their lineman board. And so we're going to take him to be the first lineman. All
right. Well, there you go. I love it, man. What about any big long shots, and you could even use your Texans linebacker or Mr. Irrelevant. And I call this beer bet bangers because it's kind of something, throw some beer money on and hey, you hit it, you buy a lot of beer, right? It's just a little fun banger for you. I got one myself. And I'm just going to go with what I said before. I really think that there's a chance that maybe the Steelers like Carson Beck, and the fact that Carson Beck has had so much experience, second quarterback selected, 18-1. Throw a little beer money on that one.
All right, I got a couple for you that I haven't spoken about. First one, I just hit on Kirk Cousins to be signed by the Raiders, 70-1 for his next team back when they opened that market. This is also 70-1. Ty Simpson to the Green Bay Packers. Like I said, we've seen this organization do this before. Take a talent that they think is a talent. I know Jordan Love is the guy, quote unquote, but is he the guy? And also this covers us in a lot of scenarios where Ty Simpson slips. I know the markets, and I'm saying that he's probably going to be a first rounder, but I think there's a decent probability that he also slides into the second round. 70-1 for Green Bay to do this. And then for my other long shot,
that's nice.
The Houston Texans. I already gave you linebacker, so we're kind of double dipping here. So maybe split your beer money up on that one. But the GM has talked about the tight end position ad nauseum this offseason. There's a chance Sadiq can slide, right? I know we talked about him going 15, but if he slides, that's the one scenario. The other scenario is Houston trades down. They need more picks. They trade down. They can still get a player that they like. Tight end in the second round. Maybe it's Eli Stowers or who knows. The idea that it's 25-1 though, when I've seen the GM talk about one position, and it's the tight end. He's also talked a little bit about the offensive line position, but he was talking a lot about the tight end position. So we're going to take a tiny bit of that beer money, maybe a 6-pack's worth, and throw that on the Texans also to have a first pick be a tight end.
All right, well, love it. First pick tight end, big money for those odds. Hey, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on, my man. Really appreciate your insights. I can talk draft with you for like 3 hours, but I'm sure people would turn the show off if that's the case. So what's going on over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network?
Yeah. So, we're locked and loaded. It's draft week. We'll be live. Like I said earlier on the show, we'll be live for the entirety of the draft. We'll have some unique markets that we're going to be offering. And so definitely come check out that, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/YouTube, or just come find us on YouTube. And then in general, the off season is here for football, but that doesn't mean, we're in the off season mode. So we got, the NBA gambling podcast covering the playoffs over in the NBA. We got Stanley Cup playoffs being covered by the hockey gambling podcast. We got MMA gambling podcast covering the fights. We got golf. We got it all covered at Sports Gambling Podcast Network. So just throw it in the search bar. Find us.
Thanks again for coming on, Ryan. He's got you covered at every sport over at the Sports Gambling Podcast. We'll be texting Ryan. Best of luck in the draft tomorrow.
Cheers.